my fear, and I realize this, and I know this is gonna sound crazy, but like my fear was never of failure, because you don't fail, you learn all the ways that it doesn't work, kind of thing. And so I wasn't failing, I was learning. But I was terrified of what would happen if my dreams actually did come true, you know? Like what happens when you get everything you want.
Welcome to the Island Girls Rock podcast. Here, we honor the stories, voices, and everyday magic of Caribbean women and girls across generations. Let's get into today's conversation. Hello, everyone. We're back. We are so happy today to be joined by Brittany Suzanne Kelly, an award-winning Caymanian writer, producer, and director, and the first ever film commissioner of the Cayman Islands. Brittany's work spans film, television, and digital media, with projects including Black Sheep, The Skip Sullivan Story, Too Close, Ivan, The Fallout, and Learning How to Drive. They've also contributed to major productions through their work with Westbrook Media, supporting projects such as Bel Air, we need to talk about that, digital content, and the Spectacular. Cinema runs really deep in Brittany's story. Their great-grandfather owned the very first movie theater in the Cayman Islands. And today, they're shaping the future of filmmaking in the region through both their creative practice and cultural leadership. We're really excited to be in conversation with Brittany today. Now, of course, I've given it all away. But before we even get into things, Brittany, remind the people where you're repping.
I am repping Cayman, and I am very happy to be here. Thank you, Chantel.
Oh, and thank you for saying yes. And Brittany, I'm going to give our listeners a little bit of context because we actually met at
The Cross-Continental Forum,
in Barbados last summer, which was for me an amazing experience. We were Island Girls Rock, were one of the lead media partners, and we got to cover, was it 5 days? Was it 5 days?
I think, yeah, it was 5. It was a lot of days in terms of, it was so much information and there was so many activities. It felt longer than, but like in the best way.
Exactly, in the best way. Getting to meet, and the theme I also loved, decolonizing film co-production in the global South, which we'll definitely talk about in this conversation. But just meeting so many filmmakers and industry types in one space in Barbados from the global South. You know, I'm still in touch with so many people from that. How about you?
Yes, same. It was one of those things. I attended it pretty early after my appointment as film commissioner. And I was it came to me in I actually had applied originally to go as a writer, as a filmmaker. And then I, thankfully my bosses and the organization, the Film Commission, supported me going to this, and kind of as a research thing in terms of like what the region is doing, where we are as like a Caribbean region in the film world. And it was just so wonderful to be surrounded by so many people from the global South and representing countries that I hadn't necessarily worked in or had experience with in the film industry. And it was very eye-opening in terms of the things that are almost gate-kept by the current incumbent kind of major industry stakeholders. And it opened my eyes a lot, for sure. And it definitely was, I got to meet so many wonderful people. And so I am still in touch with many of them today, and hoping those connections, like, you never quite know in terms of like in the film industry when you meet someone, how that's going to come into play and like that kind of thing. And it was a good networking opportunity, not in the sense of like career climbing or chasing like any type of like goal. It was just knowing who in the region is also dealing with the same issues that you're dealing with.
Yes. Yes. And Brittany, we've already started the conversation.
Yeah.
But as you can tell, if you're listening, this conversation is going to be talking about filmmaking quite a bit and storytelling.
Yeah.
And I've really been looking forward to it because one of my biggest passions in the world is storytelling, especially through film, and especially, if we go down into the layers, Caribbean filmmaking, right?
Yes.
So, on a personal level, you've been telling stories across film, television, and digital media for quite some time now. So, when you think about your work as a storyteller, what themes or questions tend to return for you?
With specifically with my personal films, I always kind of identity is always something that I get drawn to, and I don't know if
Hmm.
it's because I'm mixed race or culturally mixed that I'm always like pulled towards like definition of personhood and definition of like identity.
Mm,
Even in like the comedies that I do, like the short comedies that I made, like Skip Sullivan, the Black Sheep
yes.
story. It's like a mockumentary
Okay.
about a girl who wants to be a sheep herder. We made it for the 48-hour film project, and it was like uh just something kind of identity wise. It was such a weird
Okay.
thing about a girl who wants to be a sheep herder, but she lives in the Caribbean and there's no sheep on her island, so she uses dogs.
Oh,
So it's like
I love that.
a weird um kind of amalgamation. Just everything that I write and direct is rooted deeply in character, because without the
Mm,
characters, there's no story,
hmm.
without the driving force in people. So I always think that kind of once I think I'm jumping the gun on the question, but
No.
once you find who your characters are, then that kind of dictates your story. And so for me, finding the identity of who the story is about or like what their specific goals are is kind of always at the center of whatever I'm doing.
Okay. Okay. And I want to just go back to something you said about identity, right? And I think for those who didn't grow up in the Caribbean, who don't have that connection to the Caribbean, what people always seem so surprised at, and I find it surprising that they're surprised, is that we are so mixed culturally,
Absolutely. Yeah.
right?
It's it's so interesting because like even like on the surface level, my father
Hmm.
is black and my mother is white, but my
Hmm.
mom is white Caymanian, and
Okay.
her family goes back in Cayman generations. And then my dad is black Jamaican, but
Hmm.
he also has roots in Cayman, and then I believe he also has like Irish roots for some reason.
Right. I
So
mean, we kind of know why,
I
Brittany.
mean, yes,
I mean,
colonization at the root of
right.
everything. But it's yeah, it's hard to explain to people, especially a lot of people like in the UK and in the
Mhm.
US, like whenever particularly in the US, when I moved there in 2008 for university, that was kind of the biggest question I got asked, and I never really knew at the time because I grew up full time in Cayman. I had never really lived anywhere else, and the
Right.
number one question people would ask me is like, "What are you?" And I really
Such a
didn't.
strange question. I
It
find
is
it
such a strange
strange.
question, and, like but it wasn't strange to people in America, and I don't know if it's just that, like, Americans love to
Okay.
label things, but, like, the number one thing was always, like, "What are you? What race are you? Like, where are you from?
Mm.
Why do you talk like that?" Like,
Mm.
it got very I learned my American accent very quickly because I got
Wow.
tired of the questions, but,
Okay.
yeah, it's a identity in the Caribbean is also because so many of us with roots in Africa were not raised in that culture, we have
Hmm.
that disconnect. So like yes, we are culturally Caymanian or Jamaican or whatever island you're
Yes.
born and raised in, but there is kind of like a disconnect in terms of our ancestral lineage that we won't a lot of us won't really get to explore in depth in terms of
Hmm.
like answers, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly. I mean, it's so funny you say that. I have just finished reading the most amazing book, Ever Since We Small, by Celeste Muhammad, and I think you should make a film about it.
I'm adding it to my list right now.
I'm putting it right there, right? And it is actually a story. which is it's steeped in identity and culture and ethnicity in the Caribbean from the Indo-Caribbean perspective, right?
Oh,
And what it means to be a Dougla. I think that's how you pronounce it, which is someone of Indo-Caribbean and Afro-Caribbean mixed, right? And it made me think, even, because for me, I am Black. That is, I am a Black woman. But then if you peel back the layers, according to America,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know, I would be considered mixed race because my great grandmother was Indo-Caribbean. But in Nevis, we are Nevisians, right?
exactly, yeah.
And so the question of what are you when I then moved permanently back to the UK, because like you, I think there was a lot of back and forth or a bit of
Mhm.
back and forth. And I was asked that question. It was always very like, what? Because you grow up in this almost like a little bubble, like, yeah, you're Navision, you
Exactly.
know,
It's
you're
very
Jamaican,
similar in Cayman, like,
right?
I didn't I didn't know that I was mixed race, I think, until, like, year 3
Mm,
when we had a new girl come to the class, and she was Jamaican, and she we were in class, and then one day my dad came to pick me up, and she was like, "Brittany Kelly, why is your dad Black?" And I was like, "What is
Jamaican.
going on?" I was like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, "Dad, are you Black?" Like, and I just didn't understand, like,
Oh God.
what the context of it was, and then I moved to the States and found out that I also was Black, and I was
Yes,
like, "Oh." I was like,
yes.
"I'm not just Caymanian?" Like,
Mm,
it's such an interesting thing to suddenly, like, because when you're a child, like, hopefully, you're not really faced with, like, a "What am I?" question all
yeah,
the time, you know?
we can
And
hope,
then,
right?
blessingly, like, I was never faced with that until pretty much until my late teens when I moved to the States, and I had to really be, like, staring at myself like, "Oh, wait, hold on. I am of 2 worlds or, like, multiple worlds,"
Mm,
because, like, culturally as well, like, the film and television industry, it's just America leads that
right.
very, very well in terms of, like, they're very good at getting their content all over the world.
Oh, very
And
much so.
I watched a lot of American content in my
Mhm,
like, I wasn't really allowed to watch TV until my early teens, and then once I got a hold of TV, it was primarily American content,
mm.
whatever was available at, like, Blockbuster Video to rent, and
Blockbuster. Wow, you just
yeah,
took me back.
yeah. I know, I'm old.
But I think we need to explain, Brittany, just in
Yeah.
case there are people listening who are like, what?
Oh. Oh,
Blockbuster?
okay. Yeah. So in Cayman, we had Blockbuster Video, and we also had a place called Monster Video. And
Wow.
we would go in, and every, like, Friday, we would go on the weekend, we would go and rent, movies, and then
Yes.
we'd have to return them within a week, or else you'd
Yes.
pay late fees and you weren't allowed to rent any other movies. And yeah, that was my favorite, like, we'd get to rent stuff, and I ended up Monster Video would bring in, like, DVD packs as well, and I would buy DVD packs from them, and now I just have all these DVDs that I don't know what I'm gonna do with, because, like, I don't wanna throw them away, because, like, I have them, but I cannot tell you the last time I watched I don't even know if I have
Same.
a DVD player, to be honest with
Same. And
you.
I was faced with that question just yesterday because there's a film that I want to screen here in Nevis. And I guess I didn't realize that the film is 20 years old. And
Oh,
so I didn't consider that there wouldn't be a digital version of the film because it's a Caribbean made film. And, we don't have access to those resources as much as if you were out in the
yeah,
global north, I guess.
exactly.
Um, and so the filmmaker said, "Oh my gosh, Chantal, I only have it on DVD." I was
Oh,
like,
no.
DVD, what? I'm like, let me figure out a way. There must be somebody on the island that still has a DVD player, right?
I
So,
know.
so, so that is my quest. But I've heard that there is going to be a resurgence in
I
DVD.
mean, I think with
Yeah.
the state of the world today,
Hmm.
people are I keep seeing these, articles about people going more analog, like,
Yes.
they're getting, like, the old flip telephone, like, cell phones
Hmm.
where they don't have, apps on them so they can stay off social media.
I
They're
love
like,
that. I love it.
and it's nice because that
Mhm,
I feel like there is kind of a, in terms of like level of detachment that like we as a people need, that's kind of like good for the soul.
mhm,
Like being dialed in, like the first thing I do every morning is I open my phone and I check the news, check my social media, which is
mhm.
not a mentally healthy thing to do.
No.
So like I feel like just going back to that analog lifestyle where you're like,
Yeah.
oh hey, like I'm existing and the world, if information needs to find me, it will,
It
kind of
will.
like vibe, you know?
Yes, yes, because that's what it did before. And we
Exactly.
were fine, and we were still very much aware of
Yeah.
what was happening in the world, right?
Especially in small communities, because if something goes on in a small community, you'll find out very quickly.
You will know, okay? And you
Exactly.
know, that is such a beautiful segue because speaking of community, I want to speak about your family, right?
Mhm.
And the
Yes.
fact that your great grandfather owned
Yes.
the very first movie theater in the Cayman Islands.
Yes.
How
Yeah.
how does that stick with you, that personal legacy?
I think I honestly, I didn't find that out until I was a teenager.
Mm.
And like at that time, I had already known I was gonna be in the film industry. I was
How
like,
did you know? I'm curious because you
I,
said
I didn't watch
you didn't
TV.
watch TV,
Yeah.
right?
My parents didn't really have a TV. They had a TV in the house, but I think the most TV I watched was like Barney.
Oh,
And like, because I was really into Barney as a
okay.
child. And so I had like the VHS, the Barney VHS tape. So like
Mhm.
I like kids at my school, they would be watching like, I don't know, like Degrassi or like
Oh
whatever like
gosh.
TV show is out, and
Right.
I would just hear about it. And then I think when I was like 13 or 14, we got like a TV with like cable. And I was like, "Oh." I was like, "Okay, this is," because I was a book person. I was a book
Mm,
child. If I got grounded or like punished, my books would get taken away. That was like my source of entertainment. I
okay.
was very much like a book child. And so once I found movies and TV, I was like, this is crazy. And then I think I was watching a DVD and I accidentally turned on the commentary version of a
Oh,
DVD. And I
okay.
was like, wait, this is a job. Like you know, like you don't really think too much about movies and TV unless you're like working in it. And I
Yes.
was like, oh my God, this is a job. And they were talking about screenwriting and they were talking about filming and all that process. And I was like, oh my God, hold on. I think this is it. Like, this is a
Mm,
job. And then my
mm,
dad also, my grandfather had like a big video camera. On my grandfather on my mom's side had like a big video camera. And then my dad on vacations, he would have a camcorder. And
yes.
so I was just like, let me at it. Like, let me let me play with it, please. And so just kind of like capturing videos became sort of second nature to me. And then I found out my mom was talking about a summer job, and she said that like she had to work and like work at the theater. And I was like, what theater? Because like we had a drive-in theater that
Mhm.
closed very very long before I even knew what theater was. And then
Okay.
we had like we only have one theater on the island, and it was the Marquee Cinema. And I was like, you used to work at Marquee? And she was like, no, I used to work at my grandfather's theater. It was called Bushy's Theater, and it
Oh,
was on the waterfront in Cayman. And I was like, that, I don't know, something in me was like, okay, cool, like movies, that's very cool. But then now, like, kind of being in the position that I'm in now,
mm.
it's like ancestral ties in some way. I don't know how to
Yes.
explain it. It's very like,
It was meant to be. That's how I
yeah,
feel.
yeah. And like, honestly, I didn't remember it until one of my coworkers was like, we were going through archival footage and like the theater was there in one of the photos. And I was
Mm,
like, oh yeah, this is my great grandfather's theater. And she was like, you're the film commissioner and your great grandfather opened the
come
first
on.
theater in Cayman. And I was like, oh my gosh, wow, that is
Yes.
that is really cool.
I
And
just
like,
got goosebumps. I
yeah,
just got
it
goosebumps
was,
when you said that.
yeah, it definitely feels full circle. I didn't meet him obviously
Mhm.
because he passed before I was born, but I did when I was younger. I did have a very close relationship with my grandfather, his son,
His son.
and
Okay.
I just like it's. it's stuff like that that kind of makes me believe in like predestination stuff, you
Right.
know, where
Yeah.
it's like there are certain people that were put on this earth to do certain things, and like
Mhm.
I'm not saying I was born to be film commissioner. I just know that like film, I come by my interest for film, honestly.
Yes. Yes. And I want to start speaking about your role as film commissioner.
Mhm.
But I first want to find out from you, what did you have to pause, shift, or hold? Because you're a filmmaker and you're working in film,
Yeah.
and now you are stepping into this role, the very first, and not just the role, but being the very first film commissioner. So, what did you have to kind of shift or hold as you moved into the role?
Um, everything. It was so I was living in Los Angeles
Hmm.
uh for I had been in Los Angeles from 2019, and I'd been in the States since 2017. Before that, I was in London, and I was in Los Angeles and I was working, and I was freelancing primarily. I do a lot of ghostwriting and story
Hmm.
doctoring, and I got the wonderful opportunity. First of all, I got I got a not a callback. What's the like I came they asked for like a follow-up interview,
Right, right.
and they asked for like an assignment, and then they asked for a follow-up interview, and I don't know, it kind of seemed a little too good to be true, if that makes sense. So I didn't fully like let myself think I could come home and work in film.
Why? Tell
And
me why. I'm curious.
just because I think just indoctrination of
Okay.
the US film industry, because everybody always tells you you have to be in LA to make films, you have to be in LA to work in film,
Mhm,
like that kind of
mhm.
stuff. And so that was kind of the narrative that was told to me and that I really bought into. And so I was like sitting in LA being like, I want to work in film, but like this seems too far out of my, and also just internalized sexism and misogyny.
Of
Kind
course,
of
right.
like they're not gonna pick someone as young as you, they're not gonna pick a woman, they're not gonna pick
Mm,
like all of the, and then there's just so many different things at play in there, and
mhm.
so mentally I wasn't really preparing. I was still collaborating with my co-writers, I was still in development on projects, and so I accepted the job, and I flew out of LA on March 2nd, and my first day of work was March 3rd. Like
No.
that's how like I
What?
was not ready to leave LA. And so like
Wow.
even now I'm still in that kind of like I love my job. Like I love being
Mhm,
film commissioner. I love working with Caymanian filmmakers. I love working with international productions that come to Cayman. But it
mhm.
is like I'm a storyteller at heart. I'm a creative, and
Right.
it's it is this is a very different job than being a creative. This is very admin heavy, it's very policy heavy,
Yes.
it's a switch up. And so for me, I think it is still an adjustment. I've been in
Mhm,
the role about 11 months now,
mhm,
and it's still hard to believe. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm like,
mhm.
"Oh, okay, wait, I'm the film commissioner." And,
Yes,
like,
you are.
I am honored to be in this role and be able in a position to help develop the film industry, specifically in Cayman.
Mhm.
And it but it I did have to shift around a lot of things. I stepped away from a lot of the projects I was working
Ye
on.
yes.
I still write and I still script doctor and I still do stuff like that because I can't not do that, you know?
Yeah, it's part of
There
who you
are things
are,
that are
right?
like yeah.
Yeah.
But I did kind of take a back seat in terms of like more production roles because production's an all-encompassing beast of a thing.
Oh,
Like
yes.
you can't if you're a producer, you have to be a producer. And
Yes.
if
Absolutely.
if your heart, your energy, if all that's not in it, then you gotta step away, you know?
Mm. So, what I want you to do for our listeners who may not be in the film industry, tell us exactly what a film commissioner does. Who is a film commissioner? What is their purpose?
So honestly, it depends on jurisdictions, and I'm
Right.
learning that other film commissioners have a completely different job than my job.
Mm-hmm.
So my job right now, like I act as a secretariat of the Film Commission Board, which is a board of very talented and hardworking filmmakers and entrepreneurs and professionals that kind of like guide the policy making and decision making for the film commission. And we also facilitate productions that want to film in Cayman. And
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of my day to day is helping those productions kind of have a smooth production on island. And another part of my job is to promote Cayman as a film friendly destination. And
Yes.
that's my favorite part because I get to talk about the filmmakers on island, I get to talk about our locations on island, and I get to talk about the benefits and the fun part of filming in Cayman. And I love
Mm-hmm.
talking about there's nothing like filming at home. So
Right.
I love talking about filming in Cayman. I love uh the I guess marketing side of it where
Mm.
I get to talk about the benefits of filming in Cayman, what kind of projects can do well in Cayman. And then I also part of my job is developing policy and rules, and
Yes.
we're in the process of developing like best practices for filming in Cayman. And I have experience in filming in many different jurisdictions. Primarily,
Mm-hmm.
like the most filming I've done is in London and in
Okay.
Los Angeles and Miami.
Mm-hmm.
And so kind of integrating best practices because we don't have this infrastructure in Cayman.
You are building it.
Yeah, we're working towards that. We're working
Mm-hmm.
towards we have so many talented filmmakers in Cayman, so many talented individuals across all areas of film. And
Right.
it's this is kind of like not a fun thing to say, but like when production companies from other countries come to Cayman, they may not necessarily be as appreciative or respectful
Yes.
of our
Yes.
local filmmakers and our
I
local
understand.
systems.
Yeah.
And so it's important to me that like any production that comes down respects the island, respects the local industry people, and also just doesn't take advantage of
Yes.
our Cayman kindness, you know?
Yes. And this is why it's important for you guys as a film commission to develop those policies, right?
Exactly, yeah.
I
So
love that.
we're working on it, and
Mhm.
just as we develop, it's exciting
Mm.
because it's an industry that I've been a part of personally for 15 years. Like just saying that. That
It
sounds so
just goes,
long.
but it goes so quickly. It
Yeah,
does
it
sound long,
does.
right? But
It
15
does.
years, that
Yeah.
wasn't that long ago, but in a sense it is
Yeah.
15 years. Yes.
Yeah. Since like I've just been kind of back and forth. Like I'll do shoots in Cayman, I'll work in
Mm.
LA, like and kind of just seeing because the industry it ebbs and flows, you know, like some people come in
Mm.
and they're really excited because filmmaking's not an easy career.
No, it's not.
And Hollywood just does such a great job of showing like the glitz and the glamour, and the
Mhm.
media shows how fun it is. Like
Mhm.
if you see a blooper reel from a movie, you're like, "Oh, I wanna be a part of that and laughing and, like,
Right.
lots of fun." But then you get on set and it's 5 o'clock in the morning and
Mhm.
you've been going nonstop for, like, 8 days, and all you
Yes.
wanna do is crawl into the bathroom and go to sleep.
Yes.
And but there's still, like when I'm on set, there's nothing I'd rather be doing. My
Mm.
body hurts, my brain hurts, my eyeballs are burning, but I'm so just happy to be there and making something.
Absolutely. And I love that you said, they don't show you the tears.
No, they
And
don't. They
yeah.
only do it, like, if it's, like, tantalizing or gossip
Yes.
fueled,
Yes.
but literally, like, they don't show you, like, the director and cinematographer fighting. They don't show you
Oh, yes.
and there's so much messiness that happens on film sets,
Mm.
and it's literally, like I used to joke that every film I was on, I was trauma bonding with someone new
Somebody
because it's so crazy.
I remember Brittany, the first film. Well, it wasn't a film, it was a series that I was producing. And it was the first time, really, I was working with a director and who was also the editor. right?
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. See, there you go. You already know where
Yeah,
this is going.
I'm that person, and the producer hates to see me coming.
Let me tell you, the first series that I worked on, and we were in the editing suite, and there was something that I disagreed on, and I was very young, and I was still confident, but not overly so, right?
Mhm.
And they asked for my opinion, and I gave it. And the response, Brittany, I ended up crying.
Yeah.
See, they don't show you that.
Creative people are mean.
Mean.
Like, they are mean, and it's because I was trying to figure out, I was like,
Oh,
why are people so mean when it
yes.
comes to creative things? And it's because and I kinda cracked the code a little bit when I was producing, like,
Please
other people's
share.
stuff. It's because and I used to do these workshops, and this was, like,
Mm,
I would spend, like, if it was a 2-day workshop, I'd probably spend, like, a quarter of the day talking about this, but there's this concept that I call same page club,
right.
where every single person on the film needs to be making the same movie. And
Oh my
if
goodness.
if
Yes.
like and this happens a lot with independent film or short films where you're pulling
Mm,
crew that hasn't really worked together before.
hmm.
Sometimes the cinematographer and the director are making 2 different movies.
Two different films telling two
And
different stories.
if they're
Wow.
not on the same page club, like, that's when things
Mm,
get a little messy because it's like they're this person's making an art house film, and then this person's making a deep, like, Western drama, and, like,
yes.
visually, they're not on the same page, and so, like, when I would produce stuff, I would get people together and, like, have a meeting, and that's why
Mm,
mood boards are so important, that's why, like,
absolutely.
inspiration images are so important, just so that every single person on the crew knows what movie they're trying to make and knows
Mm,
what the end result is gonna look like. Because that and when I kind of started implementing that into the projects I was doing, it got so much smoother. There was
I,
arguments because
I
of,
that
like,
is such a gem. That is
yeah,
a gem that you have shared because the pre-production for me is one of the most important stages of the filmmaking process.
absolutely.
And I remember again, I was approached for a project, and so I sent over my quote with pre-production, production, and post. And they're like, "Oh, pre-production." And I'm like, "Yes."
Yeah.
"Oh, we don't do that." I'm like, "What do you mean you don't?" I don't understand. Like I said, "So what do you do?" "Oh, well, the director just puts everything together and then we show up and we go into production." I'm like, "Wow." So
Mm.
I didn't get the job, needless to
Oh,
say, because I would have been costing them more money.
I don't think you wanted that job.
I don't But I love what you just shared. It's, I've never even thought about it that way, making sure that you are actually on the same page.
Yeah, and that's where a lot of the disconnect happens, and that's where,
Mm,
like, it's just because it ends up being an ego thing, and, like, you can say ego and but ego thing sounds so dismissive because
right.
it's not like, these are all creative people, they all have their own deep creative visions and how they
Yes.
wanna see things, and, like, at the end of the day, like, yes, the director is in charge, but you're all servicing the story in different ways and you're all developing the project together. And filmmaking is not a solo sport. It's
It
not a
is not.
solo industry.
No.
Like, collaboration is at the core of all filmmaking. And if you're collaborating, but your end goal is not the same, that's where the quote unquote ego problem comes in because everybody feels like their vision is being disrespected or
Hmm.
not honored. And like, yes, the director is the face of everything, but it's equally important that whatever the director is seeing in their eyes, that every other crew member is also seeing that.
Absolutely. Um, Brittany, I feel like we could have a 2-hour conversation. I really do. It's so tempting. And we're not wrapping up, by the way. So this is not
Okay.
me saying, oh, but we're going to wrap up. We're not wrapping up. I'm feeling that you need to come to Nevis. and
I
we
would
need to
love
do
to come
some
to Cayman.
workshops. So let's figure out how to make that happen, right?
Yes, I would
Because we
love
have
to.
a lovely fledgling film industry that is being built where I feel we're at the infancy stage. And one of the things that you said is the respect that needs to be shown to Navision filmmakers,
Absolutely.
when we have the international teams coming through. And last year, I saw that there was a call out for a production that was happening, an international production. There were, for extras and whatnot. And I wanted to share it with the Island Girls Rock community. So I asked the question, how much are the extras being paid? And they said, oh, they're not being paid.
Not being paid.
And I said, well, why? Like, how is this being allowed? What do you mean? I'm like,
Yeah.
the production has come, they have a budget. They should have a budget for extras because extras are working.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's just going to be a good experience. I'm like, wait, what?
Did they
They
offer them food?
like, I didn't even think to ask, to be honest.
Oh, because that's my like I respect an independent filmmaker because like
Yes,
I'm an independent filmmaker, but
yes.
like you get and sometimes filmmakers rest on their laurels in terms
Hmm.
of like they want they're like, "Oh, we're making a film. Everybody wants to be a part of a film,"
Right.
and they kind of take it for granted that people, especially people in smaller communities, would just like jump to be in a
Just
film.
be on, yes, just
But
to be on the
like you
screen,
said,
right?
like they need like I always when we would have background that weren't getting like cash payments, I'd be like,
Hmm.
"Do you want a picture with the cast? Do you want
Something.
food?" Like I'd always make sure to have really good snacks on set for those
Snacks are
days when we
important. We know this.
yeah, there was a film that I did and we had 150 extras, and this was the first day of the film. This
Right.
was my first day on set with this crew, and the crew had worked together before. I came on as a production coordinator, and then I ended up getting promoted to line producer. Um, but I came on and I had to manage 150 people,
Mm.
and they were like, "Oh, we have some water," and it was like Dasani water,
Mm.
and I was like, "They're gonna riot within an hour. Like, we need to." So I sent one of the PAs. I was like, "Go to wherever is the closest store, get chips, get candy, get whatever you can find.
Yes.
Here is $200. Get as much as you can."
Yes.
And they like because it was a long scene. It was like a scene in a theater, and so we
Okay.
needed the same background for like 8 hours. And I was
Oh.
like obviously we fed them lunch on set and like that kind of stuff. But I was like,
Hmm.
in between takes, they're gonna be bored, so you have to either feed them or entertain them.
Hmm.
And so like we had the cast kind of sing to them a couple of times, but like you have to keep like extras people don't realize like on big budget films, yes, of course people extras get paid, they get paid like their day rate, but like
Yes.
on independent films, like especially in the Caribbean, you have to feed Caribbean people
Oh,
a
please. I
like if
mean,
you don't feed Caribbean people, it's over, like
I
you're
am
gonna
not showing up. I am not showing up where there's no food. It's not happening.
yeah. But it's like it's kind of that like people assume that just because you're making a movie people want to be a part of it and like give up their free time and spend all their
Thank
time there.
you. Thank
And
you.
like, yes, there is a very small part of the population that would literally do it, quote unquote, for fun.
Hmm.
But like, this is people's time. Like you said, it's their time. They're putting
It's
in
their
effort. They're
time.
working. They're helping you do something. So if
Hmm.
you can't compensate them monetarily, you at least have to respect their time and not keep them on set for like 18 hours with
Yes.
food and like
That part.
and
Yeah,
just remembering that people are humans. I think
exactly.
that's at
Which
the
is
point of everything.
which comes back to a lot of what you spoke about in terms of advocacy,
Yeah,
right? For Cayman, and that includes the people of Cayman you're advocating for them, you're protecting them, you're showing up with care
absolutely.
for the industry and the people in it on your island. And that is a big part. For me, it's a responsibility of the Film Commission to
Yeah.
to hold their community in care and to advocate for them, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I've been going to a lot of these film commission like uh conferences and like
Hmm.
meeting other film commissioners and across the board that's like the number one message whether it's like the Utah film commissioner or like the
Hmm.
Fijian film commissioner it's always like we have to protect our people and our country
Yes,
and
yes.
like not protect and like that someone's coming to take it or anything, but just
Mm.
protecting the fact that, like, filmmaking is not an environmentally sustainable industry. They're working on it. People are
Mhm.
developing like regulations and stuff, but it's a very like they get like especially in locations like Cayman, they get in, they get out, you know?
Yes,
They're not
yes.
coming to like productions aren't coming to like develop a studio in Cayman. Like they're
Mhm.
coming to shoot the pretty beaches, they're coming to shoot the pretty locations, and then they're
Mhm.
skedaddling.
Yes.
And it's important to me as the film commissioner that when these productions come, that they're training local creatives, that they're
Mhm.
there because we don't have a film school on island. We don't have
Right.
those resources, and like thank goodness for the internet where people are able to learn a lot of these skills and like pick up new things through that kind of globalization of knowledge. But, like, I had to go away to film school. I had to
Yes.
leave my island to
Yeah.
get the information, and, like, thankfully, we're in a position where our creatives on island are learning more from the internet and learning more from, like knowledge sharing online, but it's important to get that hands-on experience as well. So, it's very important to me that when the productions come, they share their knowledge and their experience with local filmmakers.
Mm. That is integral, I think. And I love the idea of some type of training exchange.
Yeah,
I
I think it's vital because
Mhm.
most of the stuff I learned was when I was a PA just watching,
Yes. Yes.
and I
Definitely.
and the opportunities for me to be a PA only came about because I went to film school and I was in
Mhm.
Los Angeles. Well, I by the time I reached Los Angeles, I wasn't a PA anymore, thankfully. But, like, being a PA and just being on set and learning things
Yes.
is, I think, one of the most educational experiences I've ever had.
Mm.
And just talking to people. And that's like obviously growing an industry is hard and you can't grow an industry without like the foundation, and the
Mhm.
foundation comes from people knowing how to make films
Yes.
and knowing how to like do films efficiently. Like a lot
Mhm.
of our filmmakers here in Cayman are running people, like they'll run, they'll shoot, and then they'll go and edit. Like, but they're
Yes.
not setting up the lights, they're not doing that kind of stuff. And like it's great for that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But I know personally for me that wasn't enough. And that's why I ended up leaving. I left twice.
Mhm.
I went to undergrad in the US and then I went to postgraduate. I did my postgraduate degree in filmmaking in London at London Film
Yeah.
Academy.
Yes.
And I came back to Cayman after that. I graduated from that in 2015
Okay.
and I came back from that. I was in Cayman for like a year and a half and I was producing, I was directing, and I was like, I have stagnated a little bit. Like I've grown
Okay.
stagnant in my career because I'm not learning anything new. And
Okay.
so I went to Miami and I went to Florida because I my grandmother had a place there.
Mhm.
I was a school teacher part-time and I was filmmaking part-time, and that's where I kind of like really learned a lot. I was able to get on some film sets, I was able to get on some TV and like corporate sets, and through learning in that environment, which was a very intense like low budget independent environment where they were doing things sort of like quote unquote by the Hollywood book, but
Okay.
it was just a little bit low budget. And so to like learn and like grow in that area, and then I mean, I think with filmmaking you're always learning and growing because the industry is
It
always,
changes. Come on now.
but
Everything.
it was great because I was
Mm.
able like I realized I not that like I literally I don't mean this in any disrespectful way at all, but I had
Mhm.
outgrown the film industry in Cayman and I had
Mhm.
learned all I needed to or could in that moment. And I
Mhm.
was like, I need to seek knowledge somewhere else. And so I went to Miami and then ultimately I was in Florida for a little bit and then I went to LA because again I had outgrown Florida because when I moved to Florida they were filming a lot. They were filming like Bloodline, they were filming like two or
Okay.
three Netflix shows. And then the month after I moved there, the governor had repealed the film benefits. And so,
Oh
like, all
gosh.
production basically evaporated overnight. And so, like, this big film career that I thought I was gonna have in Florida, suddenly I was teaching and I was doing these random corporate shoots, like, driving all over Florida to do stuff that wasn't necessarily what I could learn from.
Mm.
And then after I did 2 features in Florida, one as a line producer and one as a unit production manager, and I was like, "You know what? I'm at the top of my game. Let me skedaddle to Los Angeles 'cause
Right,
now I
right.
know the rules, now I know all this stuff." And what this is the hardest lesson for me to learn, I think. I got to LA and I had to start again as a PA.
Oh my goodness.
And I
Oh
was
my
like,
goodness.
"Oh."
But that's how it works, though.
It
That's
is. It's a
absolutely how
network
it
thing.
works.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because, like,
yeah.
the production where I was a UPM, I had my own network of people in Florida that I could call. I could call, like, this sound mixer, I could call this production
Right,
designer, I could be like,
right.
"Hey." I got to LA, I didn't know anybody. I knew a couple executives at places, and then I knew a couple of coordinators. And, like, thankfully, one of my coordinator friends was like, "Hey, do you want a PA on this shoot?" And I was like, "Absolutely. It pays nothing. Cool. Great. I'll do it. Just I'll do it just for the experience." And it was great.
Oh
I got to be
gosh.
on a backlot for the first time, like a massive backlot. And I was,
Wow.
like, walking around streets of New York, and it was very, very
Ah,
cool. And I
yes.
was like, "Oh, yeah." I was like, "I don't care how much I'm getting paid. Like, this is great." And so I did that. I think it was like a 2 or 3 day shoot, and then I worked for I worked with the producer, her name is Francesca,
Mhm,
and the coordinator who hired me, her name was Lizzie. I had actually gone to university in my undergrad with Lizzie, and we had just stayed in touch over the years. And her
mm,
and I went to school with each other for 1 semester, but we formed a bond, and her and I kind of our paths have crossed in weird ways throughout the time.
mhm,
And then the producer, her boss on that was named Francesca. And then a year and a half later, so I did this music video February 2019 when I moved to LA. And then in COVID hit, all of that happened. And
oh,
I was literally like unemployed. Like, I was like, what am I going to do? November of 2020, I got a text message out of the blue, like, hey, and mind you, I have not talked to this woman in a year and a half, like since
mm,
February 2019. It was Francesca. She was like, hey, are you still in LA? I have someone who's looking for a coordinator. And I was like, I am still in LA. And she was like, it's a virtual job. And it ended up being my job at Westbrook.
okay,
I called and her name is Dawn Manning. She's like a powerhouse of a producer. She's literally the most badass woman I've ever met in
okay.
my life.
As we all Google Dawn Manning.
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
She's so wonderful, and
Okay.
so she called me, she, like, texted me, she was like, "Hey, can I call you?" And I was in Target, and I, like, run to my car, and I'm getting out of this parking lot in Target, and I ended up just driving around doing this interview because I was so scared. Because where I was house sitting had, like, weird signal, so it
Okay.
would, like, cut out the phone, and I was so scared to, like, go back to where I was house sitting because I didn't want the call to drop, so I just ended up driving around Los Angeles, like, doing this phone interview for 45 minutes. And at the end, she was like, okay, can you start tomorrow? And I was like, yeah. And she goes, well, actually, just send over a resume just so I can say that it's
So
like
you have right.
official. And I
Yes.
was like, yeah, here's my resume. And then, yeah, I started then. And then I ended up working there for almost 4 years. I started as assistant
Wow.
production coordinator, and then I got promoted to in a staff production coordinator.
Mm,
And I dealt primarily with like accounting. And
okay.
so it was crazy because we at like any given time we had like 3 or 4 productions going minimum, and we like it was insane. I learned so much from Westbrook that
Yes.
ultimately Westbrook led me directly to here, this job that I have now.
Mm,
The experience there because I was dealing with an insane amount of money weekly. I
okay.
had to do a lot of things that are outside of the production coordinator role, and the projects we were working on were insane. Like I worked on the media side because I know you were asking about Bel
Yes.
Air.
And
So
I
we did
love Bel Air, and I'm gutted that it's finished.
oh,
I
I
know.
haven't, because we don't have Peacock down here in Cayman, so I haven't
Okay.
seen the last season.
Oh, it's
But,
brilliant. It's
I'm
brilliant.
so excited, like, we did a lot of, like, the section that I was with, we did a lot of the
Mm.
media promotion, so we would do, like, the
Mm.
press days and the social media stuff, and so that was really fun. And it was cool to work there because we worked more on like the branded social media, like
Okay.
advertising side. And so
Yes.
it was interesting seeing how they marry like the actual content, like the shows and the movies. Cause when I had started, we had just done King Richard.
Yes.
And so that's the tennis movie that Will Smith did with Venus and Serena.
Yes.
And it was very interesting to see how they married like the actual content with how they did the advertising and the brand deals and that kind of stuff. And it was kind of, for me, I didn't know much about capitalism until that. And then
Right.
I was like, oh, this is what capitalism's about. It's not about necessarily creating the art and selling the art. It's about creating the art, telling a story around the art, and then adding consumerism into there and how much you can
Mm.
kind of like sell based off of this one piece of art kind of thing.
Yes.
And it was eye-opening, but I learned so much. The team at Westbrook was insane. When I was there kind of through a rapid growth. So when I started, it was just me, Dawn, and Ellie, and then we grew to be a pretty big team. And then ultimately I left, I think in 2023 I ended up leaving Westbrook,
Mhm.
and it was very, I left Westbrook in an official capacity, and it was a very sad time to leave, but it was
Okay.
time for me to move on. And I was like,
Mm.
this is, I've, it kind of where I am. I'm like, I've learned all I can learn, and let me
Okay.
skedaddle. And like, not in like a disrespectful way, just in a like, okay, this role is no longer serving me
Right.
in like, and also I was getting pretty burnt out because we were doing a lot of work. We were doing a lot of work
Mhm.
constantly. We had a lot of outputs, and it was, I had heard of this concept. My one friend was like, soft life, and I was like, what's that?
What
I've
is
never heard
that?
of this. And so she told me that, and I kind of started looking into that, and I was like, oh, maybe life doesn't have to be go go go, complete job
Mm.
move, complete job move, complete job move. It can just
Mhm.
be, like, life is meant to be enjoyed, and
Indeed.
you can work
Indeed.
hard and enjoy life, but not if you're
Yes.
being burnt out.
Exactly. And you seem to, with everything that you've shared with us, you seem to have a really good understanding and instinct for when it's time to move on.
Oh, absolutely. I'm an Irish goodbyer.
And I don't want to assume that you're doing it fearlessly, but
No, I'm
from
not.
everything you've shared, you have been very courageous, and the timing has always manifested into really golden opportunities for you. What I want to know is how has moving between all of these spaces through London, LA, Miami, the Caribbean, how has this movement shaped your understanding, especially as it relates to film, your understanding of access, power, and whose
Ooh,
stories actually get resourced?
that is I I'm trying not to be jaded, and I'm trying not to be, it's very easy to get jaded when you see, cuz okay, let me gather. Um
Gather.
so I entered this industry wanting very loudly as well to be the next Quentin Tarantino.
Oh, yes.
I was like, I want to be a successful director. And like, at my ripe age of 17, I went to University of Colorado for film when I was
Mhm.
17. And I was
Big.
like, that was what I believed was a successful filmmaker: Martin Scorsese, Quentin Tarantino. Like, I
Mm.
didn't have the Gina Price by the wood, like,
Yes.
to look to at that time, like in my mind, Quentin Tarantino was it. I
Okay.
quickly learned that the incumbent of the film industry is white American males.
Okay.
And it that was kind of my first lesson in it, where I was
Mhm.
like, "Oh, wait, that's not me." Again, this kinda goes back to, like, me realizing I was Black when I moved to the States. Like, I was
Mhm.
like, "Why can't I be Quentin Tarantino?" "Oh, because 'cause I'm a woman of color from the Caribbean." Okay. So,
Right.
but I I wanna also make it very, very clear, I did nothing fearlessly. I am radiating with fear constantly. I am a walking ball of anxiety, and I think I hide it pretty well, but I am always worried about something, and with in terms of access and that kinda stuff, that's where I battle imposter syndrome the most, where I'm
Mm.
like, "Wait, do I belong here? Do I do I am I allowed to want this?"
Mm.
Is a question that I used to ask myself a lot. And I had to have a lot of honest conversations with myself and be like, "You're allowed to want anything you are willing to work
Anything.
for." Like, if
Mhm.
you're willing to work for it, you're allowed to want it. And my parents,
Mhm.
they're both amazingly hardworking people. They're so, um, driven, and they work very hard, and they're both very passionate people, and they kind of instilled that in me and my sisters, and we were all kind of, like, growing, like, if you want something, okay, figure out how to get it, kind of thing. Like, how are you making it work? And then when I got to Hollywood and the film industry, there are certain times when I worked so hard and then stuff just didn't happen. And so it was kind of like a lesson in, like, I am enough. I'm just not at the, what is it? Like, right package, wrong house, or wrong address. Like,
Yes. Yes.
it's it it's not, I had to shift what I wanted. And because I was
Okay.
like, I want to be Quentin Tarantino, I want XYZ, XYZ, XYZ. And now I realize that my passion isn't necessarily in becoming an Oscar-winning white director. My
Mm.
passion is in telling stories that represent my community and
Yes.
show my way of life and the way my mind works and that kind of stuff. So I
Mm.
had to pivot, not in terms of desire necessarily, but in terms of like what I was wanting and why I was wanting it.
Mm. Mm. I'm gonna I want that. I want that anyone who's listening to this, and not necessarily just within our community, but even externally to that, I want, if you're listening to this, I want what Brittany just shared to sit with you, right? Because for me, what I took from it through all of your adventures, what I've just taken from that small piece that you've shared is absolutely dream big, do the thing, but it takes work, right?
Oh, it takes a lot of work.
It's not gonna magically happen, and you are going to be scared doing it, right?
Absolutely.
But the
If you're not scared,
possibility,
you're not doing it right, I
then
think.
you're not doing it
Like
right, right?
like,
Exactly. You're
if
not
you're not,
challenging yourself enough.
and, like,
Yes.
I my fear, and I realize this, and I know this is gonna sound crazy, but, like, my fear was never of failure, because you don't fail, like, I don't know what the saying is that someone, it's like you don't fail, you learn all the ways that it doesn't work, kinda thing.
Yes.
And so I wasn't failing, I was learning,
Mhm.
but I was terrified of what would happen if my dreams actually did come true, you know? Like, what
Mm.
happens when you get everything you want? And then, because then it just becomes like a cycle of want. You're like, "Okay, what do I want next?" And so,
Mhm.
like, for me, I had to, like, change my relationship with that, because I was like, "This is I'm getting everything that I try to do, everything I set my mind to, I achieve." And
Yes.
that's the best kind of feeling in the world, because I'm like, okay, if I really, really, really want something to happen, I can make it happen within certain confines. And
Okay.
the
Okay.
nepotism train of Hollywood is very, very real. And
Very.
the access, as you were asking about, it is very difficult in terms of like learning, like accessing certain things if you're not born into that industry, if you don't have the right connections. But that doesn't mean that that's the only way to do something, you know?
Yes. Yes. And one thing that I garnered and that I took home with me from the Cross Continental Forum was when we had the opportunity um, to ask Ava DuVernay questions, right?
Yeah,
And I remember I asked her, you know, if your vision and your gaze and your perspective is quite different to the people who are governing the system, right? What do you do? And she said, quite simply, you build your own system,
exactly.
right?
Exactly.
And that was such a little nugget. And I think for everyone listening, and for me, that's what you've done. And you are still doing it now through your role as film commissioner. You are building that system for filmmakers in Cayman. And I'm learning
I
how to pronounce it from you.
I hope so. I think it's just my accent. I think my A's sound a little more O-ish, but like yeah, just
Okay.
like just
Cayman,
a
Cayman, Cayman, Cayman. And so my
yeah.
final question, Brittany, is is this. When you think about young Caymanians who are curious about film, but don't yet see themselves reflected in the industry, what do you hope within your role as film commissioner and even externally to that as a Caymanian filmmaker, right? What do you hope that they feel is possible now?
I that it is no secret that I am violently Caymanian first in terms of
Mhm.
like film, in terms of
Violently. I love it.
yeah, I'm aggressively Caymanian first. And the hard thing is it's like when there's no one that's come before you, it's hard to envision
Mm,
stuff. And like thankfully I have uh examples of filmmakers. Like I have Frankie Flowers whose film is coming out. It's called The Bluff. It's coming out on Amazon later this month.
okay.
Not to be a plug, but I'm very excited about. It's a
Please
pirate
plug.
film. It's set
Please
in Cape
plug.
Breton,
Come on. Plug.
and
Yes.
he's one of the people that
Yes.
I had to look to. And
Mm,
I'm violently Caymanian first in terms of in the way that like if we don't tell our stories, no one's going to tell them because we're such a small
mhm,
island. We're a small nation. Like we're three islands. Between the three islands, we're 100 square miles, and
mhm.
we are a heavily we have a lot of expats on our island. And so
Yes.
as a Caymanian, I'm
Understandable.
generationally Caymanian. I go back multiple generations on both sides of my family. And there's certain
Mhm,
stories from Cayman that only Caymanians can tell. And I'm hoping that these younger Caymanians and also some of the like the people my age and older who are in film, that we we kind of stop catering to the global north, like the incumbent
mm,
people in film, because I feel like by us trying to make films that they will buy and they will like, we're losing the opportunities to tell our stories in a really authentic way. And so I hope that the young Caymanian filmmakers are motivated to tell their stories. And there are lovely Caymanian filmmakers that are coming up. There's Jazz Pitcairn, there's Alejandro Bodin,
mm.
there's Badir
Name them,
Awe, who's
Brittany. Let us know. Tell us who they
there.
are. Yes. Yes.
We have so many like Joel Lawson. There's so many talented filmmakers in Cayman who
Mhm,
they just their talent, like pardon my language, but literally talent out the ass. Like they're just constantly producing and creating and like growing their craft. And it's hard when the local support doesn't echo the level of talent that's on island. So I'm hoping
mm.
that they'll stay empowered and stay encouraged and like continue to make their projects, you know?
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your care with us.
Hey, thank
It's
you
been
for having me.
really, oh, I'm so happy. Listen, speak to our producer, Bree. I have been looking forward to this conversation since last year when we booked you. I'm like, "Ah, I can't wait."
Yeah.
And it's been really grounding to hear how your personal history and creative practice and leadership, how it's all intersecting right now. Okay. And
Yeah,
for me, I'm coming away from this feeling that you are intentionally holding space for the future of filmmaking in the Cayman
I hope
Islands.
so. I just don't
Yes.
want it to I I don't want our stories to die with us, and, like, from a cultural
Mm,
perspective, it's very important that if it's documented in pop culture, if it's documented in plays, like, just that the creative industry lives on.
yes. Brittany, thank you. That's all I can say at this point. And we look forward to having you in Nevis.
Yes, I need to get there. I've seen pictures.
Awesome. We can't wait. Thank you, Brittany. Thank you for listening to the Island Girls Rock podcast. We'll be back soon with more stories, voices, and love from across the Caribbean. You can find us wherever you get your podcast fix. Until next time, walk good.